Hey guys, let's take a look at this new lawsuit against Marilyn Manson that's hot off the presses in New York. It hasn't even been assigned a number yet at the time I got it, received today, and we'll walk through it. I haven't read it yet, but we'll see what it's about. First thing to note is that it's in New York, and if these are old claims, which I think they are, it probably takes advantage of a statute there that's similar to you've seen around other states in the country, where there's now a look back that removes statute of limitations roadblocks for these kind of suits. Anyway, it's in the Supreme Court of the state of New York. And if you don't know, the Supreme Court is a local kind of trial level. In other states, it's usually the final appellate court, and it's the opposite in New York. So that's what that means. It's not actually in some high, lofty Supreme Court. It's at the local level as it should be. So you can see it's filed confidentially. Jane Doe against Brian Warner, and Interscope Music Publishing, and Nothing Records, and then also defendant Doe's 1 through 20, identities unknown to the plaintiff. All right, you're summoned to appear. Let's get into the actual complaint and demand for jury trial. Nature of the action. She says she is a survivor of childhood abuse. I won't read all these words, but here it is scrolling by so you can look at it. Battery, assault, molestation at the hands of the defendant, who goes by the stage name Marilyn Manson. Pedophilic obsessions, violent behaviors were known by defendants Interscope and Nothing Records. And they were also celebrated and promoted for financial gain. So here she said she was targeted in 1995 when she was 16 years old by Manson. Again, I'm trying to go slow so you can read it. I won't read every aspect of this. In 1999, he perpetuated that. So she would have been 19 years old then, she says. And let's see. She claims that the defendant record companies knew that Manson had a practice of sexually assaulting minors and aided and abetted that behavior. Bad allegation for them. She suffered severe emotional, physical, psychological distress, shame, guilt, economic loss, economic capacity, and emotional loss. So if you've watched these other suits in every direction, you know these are the kind of things you say when you have emotional distress type claims. And that the record companies knowingly, intentionally, willfully, deliberately, recklessly fostered a pervasive and hostile environment for the purpose of financial gain that utterly disregarded the rights and safety of the band's young fans. And she suffered humiliation, shame, and horror that she will continue to suffer for the rest of her life, she alleges. All right, so she says, hey, I'm an adult female residing in Maryland. The name being used, of course, is to protect her privacy as a victim of child and adult sexual assault. She was born in 1979 and was living in Maryland in 1999. The record company Interscope is a Delaware corp based out of California. Nothing Records is also that. Sorry, not sure where I was talking about there just a moment ago. I took a phone call. So back at it. All right. Nothing Records is incorporated in Ohio, but it has offices other places, whatever. As the claims arising out of abuse after she turned 18, she's bringing the complaint pursuant to the Adult Survivors Act. And that Survivors Act revives the claims set forth below. So again, that's going to be one of these new look-back statutes that revives claims of assault that are seen in many states. Otherwise, they'd be time barred by statute of limitations. But with these look-back statutes in some states, they're not. Okay, so she's saying once I find out the names of these defendant does, I'll put their real names in there. She says they're legally responsible in some manner for the things that happened to her. Getting through the precatory stuff here about why the companies would be liable. The court has jurisdiction because defendants transact business within the state of New York and committed tortious acts within the state of New York, specifically within the county of Nassau. Interesting. All right. factual allegations. So, in other words, what happened that I'm suing about? And then we'll get to the actual claims of the lawsuit, I'm sure, later. This is following a typical form of a lawsuit. So, Interscope and Nothing Records sign him and his band Marilyn Manson promote sexual deviance and violence to children. Again, I'm not going to read all of this at this point. I think we all know the gist of the nature of these allegations, and you can read it yourself here. Let's pause it. All right. So Marilyn Manson was the first band signed to Nothing Records label. Okay. I am scrolling it down. All right. So here's some allegations of allegedly Manson doing things on MTV that are oriented towards children, we'll say. And more of that. And then some quotes from the contested autobiography. So whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it relates to, images he was putting in with these records and things. All to show the record companies, hey, you knew he was like this kind of a thing. Okay. Examples of flyers distributed by the defendants promoting Marilyn Manson and his band, saying that it shows disoriented and drugged children being held by the Warner character, like puppets, and exposing things. I'm going to move on through that, but you can see it. Again, another flyer allegedly with these kids. Defendants often incorporated these kind of symbols in their promotional materials. So a lot of images here in the complaint, which is good if you can throw that in there. All right. So they said they had a phone number you could call, and then they used that to encourage underage fans to send things they shouldn't be sending. And the underage kids were sending in images they shouldn't send. I'm trying to get to the law stuff here more than particulars of the allegations. I'm sure other people will cover that in greater detail, but I'm cruising through it slowly so you can look at it as much as you want. Misery Machine. Okay. More allegations out of the autobiography. So if you didn't like that being quoted, you won't like this lawsuit. All ages shows while conducting lewd and lascivious acts on stage with underage fans in the crowds. Perhaps then he was just a few years early, if that's true. Okay, we're going to keep it moving. Marilyn Manson's face promoted on a 12-story building on Sunset Boulevard. Manson obsessed with violence and sexual assault of children and women. It's not just an act. Yeah, I've seen this video where Manson says the best and most exciting stories on the road are better left a secret because of the statute of limitations. And it's either true that he meant that or it was part of his image he was trying to create. Either way, it's not the kind of quote you want to find in a lawsuit against you. And more and worse, some of the stuff I've seen, you've seen, we've all seen, here it is in the lawsuit. More about how he's promoted by the other defendants. And keep in mind here, if you're dealing with record companies that Manson doesn't control, that's going to make this lawsuit kind of complicated with multiple defendants, kind of like you have Gore and Wood. And are they really in sync on everything or sometimes not? So if you can have multiple defendants like that, it's kind of good for the plaintiff sometimes. More about the nature of the bad behavior. This is all in preparation to where the plaintiff arrives. So here she comes at age 16. She learned of the ban after she saw somebody watching one of the t-shirts. She went to a local record shop. Does anybody remember what those are? That used to be cool. Bought his record and found out about Satan's bake sale. Some things about that. The record company should have known what he was doing. He went on a national tour promoting the upcoming release of Smells Like Children. More about the support of the record companies. Get to the gravamen of the complaint here shortly, probably. All right, so she's 16. She goes to this concert, she says. After the show, a group of 20 young fans gather outside the venue in front of his bus. They want to see him and his band. They waited for autographs. She and 3 other underage female fans waited for him. Manson saw them, started to talk to them, she says. And then they went on the tour bus. She says Manson asked what their ages were, what grades they were in, and where their parents were at the time. He then secured, if he could, home addresses and phone numbers, she says, suggesting you'll get some stuff from our fan club. But then also he performed, she says, acts of criminal sexual conduct. And there was somebody watching this go on while he was allegedly assaulting her. Then she says he laughed at her and then said, "Get off my bus. And if you tell anybody, I will kill you and your entire family." All right. When she got off the bus, she was given a private 1-800 number so she could stay in touch with the band and come to more shows. And she got a special password, and that would give you special access to the band, including Manson. Terrified, she took the paper, she says, rushed off the bus, convinced she must keep her mouth shut due to the threats that she says she received. And keep in mind, of course, we're at the lawsuit phase. So these are the allegations. You get into the evidence later, but these are the things that she says, hey, these things happened, and it's going to lead to the support of my causes of action, which is what you get to sue for, which we'll get into here in a minute. She started using drugs, she says, as a result of this. And then he started calling her, asking for explicit photos, she says, and also communicating through the internet. And encouraged by him, she went to attend another performance in Louisiana with a special access pass. She ends up on the bus again. She was still 16 years old, she says. She brought her drawings and photos. She says he drew pedophilic type symbols. And here are some of these drawings. All right. Manson kept some of the stuff she gave him. He became more aggressive. She says a sexual assault occurred. There was another adult male on the bus. All right. After that, he was kinder and said, "I want to see you again." And then it says he continued to sexually assault her at age 19. He was an opening band in LA. She was at the concert. And then she goes to Texas. She hadn't recovered from the childhood assaults, she says, and grooming, and was still having substance abuse issues. Under these circumstances, she was lured into his dark world of drugs, alcohol, deviance, harassment, abuse, and assault. So she flies to Texas to see him. She goes to New Orleans. Assistant of Manson gave her a pass so she could attend the show and have backstage access. Before the show, he noticed her and made a lewd comment. All right, so he made her feel special and chosen. And she traveled to numerous cities, states over the next 4 weeks, I suppose, going along with the band to do this. Or she was doing it at each event. He would, and his band would bring her backstage and on the bus. During this period, she encountered him virtually every day, including on days they didn't perform, and they often spent hours together talking. She was given drugs, she says, and the assaults continued, she says. So while she was a child, she says, Manson had intentionally laid the groundwork to intimidate and control her. And so that even when she reaches the legal age of majority, he still had the ability to intimidate and control her. Okay. Now she's giving some kind of jurisdictional stuff of her assaults occurring, she says, in Nassau County, where this suit is filed. And more drugs and other things similar. She says emotional manipulation began, including hostile and verbally abusive behavior, ridicule, called her bad names and called her fat. But at other times, he called her beautiful and told her secrets. Okay. She saw him cry almost every day, except when his fiance was in town. Okay. So let's keep it moving because this is all more things. And then there's a section here, retaliation against her. Okay, in 2021, after several women came forward with reports of their own abuse, she came forward online. Upon information and belief in response to that, she was subjected to severe acts of retaliation, including revealing sensitive information about her, hacking her Instagram, systematic harassment through numerous websites by Manson and his fans, and by a particular YouTuber. Wonder who she's referencing there. I think we all get the idea of who she probably doesn't like in that situation. Probably. Let's see. So he coerced her, she says, using celebrity, seniority, authority, groomed her, and caused her to become, or wanted her to become emotionally dependent upon him, further exerting control, alcohol, drugs, financial resources, and enticements. So the first cause of action she's alleging is sexual battery. So here we are. This is where she's telling the court, these are the legal theories that I think entitle me to some relief from the defendants, and relief generally being money, which is probably what she's asking for here, which is normally what civil cases are. All right. So she says when she was under 18, he engaged in unpermitted, harmful, and offensive type acts constituting sexual assault or criminal sexual conduct. She was a minor and so was not capable of consenting and didn't consent. As a direct and proximate result of that, she sustained physical, emotional, and psychological injuries and pain and suffering. Count 2 is negligence. And this is against Interscope and Nothing Records and the other anonymous defendants. The first one was just against Manson. So they knew or should have known, the record companies, that he was doing these things. Knew or should have known that he was doing all the bad things he was alleged to do. Just also that negligence requires a duty to the plaintiff, and so here they're saying that they did have a duty because they invited her onto the premises and facilities, knowing, or at least negligent to the fact that Manson was posing a dangerous condition. They have a duty of reasonable care, that's a negligent standard, to enact policies and procedures to protect fans. But they knew or should have known that he was, handing out drugs, they say, or she says, and was a danger to kids. And so, of course, she's saying they are liable for that. So this is quite a long lawsuit. This is old school. All right. So as a result of that, she has the same kind of, damages as she had before: negligent supervision and retention against the record companies. It's, going to be a little bit in the same vein as the one we just did. He was hired by them, under their control or whatever, something like that. They had a duty arising the record companies from relationship with Warner Manson to ensure he didn't do these bad things, and a duty to train and educate employees, agents, to have effective policies and procedures to address inappropriate behavior. The tortious conduct complained of hereon occurred on property provided by the defendant record company, she says. They didn't have a reasonable system in place to investigate this, supervise it, or monitor it. Okay. And can you imagine when you do these videos that are 6 minutes long, how much time you spend reading this stuff before you do it to actually pull out the meaningful things? But I think you're getting the idea there. Now we're at count 4, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Okay, so here, as an experienced legal observer, you know that you've got to show for infliction of emotional distress some kind of outrageous conduct, extreme and outrageous, exceeding the bonds of decency and intolerable to a civilized society. You need to see that in these kind of claims, and she asserts that in paragraph 111. And that the defendants, and this is every defendant, intended to cause her emotional distress and or acted with reckless disregard. So it could be either or both. In certain cases, there's a lot of defendants here of what was going to happen to her. Violation of New York General Business Law, Section 349. This is against record companies and the Does. They did business, trade, commercial functions, offering services to consumers, the public, and the plaintiff in particular. That they engaged in misleading and deceptive conduct. It kind of sounds like unfair trade practice in other states. Maybe that's what this will be when we get to the bottom. They didn't disclose their full knowledge. They had deceptive conduct, conspiring and engaging, conceal from proper civil authorities other assaults, evade Manson from criminal prosecution, allow a known abuser to continue to use his authority, power, and fame to gain access to kids. The deceptive pattern of practice and conduct. Again, it's kind of like a unfair trade practice kind of language there. Likely to deceive a reasonable person. She reasonably relied on them. This is the lawyer setting up the elements of the claim as much as it is describing anything else. The defendant's actions are subject to enjoyment, okay, to prevent the conduct. So that's something different than money there. That's also saying the court should order them to stop doing something in particular, like an injunction. But also impose a award of reasonable attorney's fees to plaintiff. Yeah, I got to the bottom quicker than I thought. I figured more. I like lots of causes of action, like 25 if you can do it. The more, the merrier. But even though this is 30 some pages long, that actually was economical on the legal part and more expansive on the factual part. So this is what she wants: prayer for relief. That's what she wants. The plaintiff: past, present, and future general damages in an amount to be determined. past, present, and future special damages, including, but not limited to, lost earnings, economic damages, and others in an amount to be determined at trial. So she's pleading to regular damages plus special damages, any appropriate statutory damages, all interest as allowed by law, civil penalties as provided by law, and order enjoining defendants from future unlawful business practices, including exposing minors and vulnerable adults to abuse and exploitation. Applicable cost of said suit for reasonable attorney's fees, for punitive damages. It says inappropriate punitive of exemplary damages, probably means or. For such other and further relief as the court may deem proper, which is just boilerplate. The amount of damages sought in this complaint exceeds jurisdictional limits of the lower courts, which would otherwise have jurisdiction. And she wants a trial by jury by all issues so triable. All right, let's bring it back here. So I'm going to get it off of their phone number stuff here. Hang on. So it looks like, in summary, this is a case of a young female who says she encountered Manson when she was a minor, and that obviously inappropriate, and if her allegations are true, illegal things occurred, continued over a course of time. No suit was brought with any time frame of being contemporary to this happening. Statute of limitations probably would have long since expired, but the governor of New York did file this look back provision. And so now this is probably not barred by any statute of limitations. That's why you can see this kind of case. And so in some of the states around the country, you can see cases just come out of anywhere that can be quite old. That's not, in my opinion, a comment on the merit of the cases all by itself. It's just a fact that you don't know how far back suits can go at this point. Again, not a comment on whether it's good or bad. I'm just telling you what the truth is as states move through these look back provisions. And here you have one. There have been some rumors that Manson was going to face additional suits, just didn't know it for sure. And here is one. Is it the last one? Who knows, right? But this one is teed up in New York, which makes his defense strategy a little more complicated, I think, at this point. As we said, and I've said before to people who are on either side of the Manson cases, litigation is a roller coaster. And within a case, you have up days and down days. And through the course, if it's a set of litigation like this, that's going to be similar. Manson has had a lot of success recently with his attorneys managing to navigate a situation where 3 of the 4 plaintiffs' cases in California are not active anymore, and only one is. But now here's another one, and it's in a whole different state. So that may change some dynamics of things, I think, in terms of comments I made about what he might do with Wood Gore. Makes me lean more toward the Manson side. Now his fans saying that he should proceed hard with that suit, even if the California case is in. Because he is still facing this suit here. Now, not aware really that this person has a connection with the other people out in California. So I'm not sure, what Manson's response will be to all of this. That we'll have to see. And anyway, this is just a first look at the complaint and not an analysis of the quality of it or any lack of quality of it in one way or the other, or what Manson's going to say in response. We obviously can figure he's going to deny it. Generally to the facts, probably. I mean, I'd be surprised if he didn't. And then secondly, any kind of legal defenses that he might have as well. But for now, that's what we're looking at. Thanks. Bye.